Nature, with its exquisite beauty and intricate design, stands as a testament to the awe-inspiring wonders of our planet. It is a harmonious symphony of diverse ecosystems, each contributing to the delicate balance that sustains life. From the towering majesty of ancient forests to the rhythmic ebb and flow of ocean tides, nature captivates with its boundless diversity. In this tapestry of life, animals play a pivotal role, showcasing remarkable adaptations and behaviors that have evolved over eons. The animal kingdom is a treasure trove of biodiversity, encompassing creatures both large and small, from the majestic elephants roaming the savannas to the industrious ants navigating microcosmic landscapes. Within the lush embrace of nature, one witnesses the dance of colors and textures, as vibrant flowers bloom and delicate butterflies flutter in choreographed elegance. The call of birds, ranging from the melodic tunes of songbirds to the haunting cries of raptors, adds a symphonic dimension to the natural world. Mammals, with their varied forms and behaviors, embody a spectrum of evolutionary marvels, from the acrobatic leaps of dolphins to the lumbering grace of bears. The intricate web of ecosystems highlights the interconnectedness of all living beings. Nature's resilience and adaptability are evident in the survival strategies of animals, whether camouflaging amidst foliage or migrating vast distances to find sustenance. Beneath the surface of oceans, a realm of mysterious creatures showcases the wonders of aquatic life, with coral reefs teeming with vibrant marine organisms and the depths housing enigmatic, bioluminescent beings. As stewards of this planet, it is incumbent upon us to appreciate and safeguard the natural world and its inhabitants. Through conservation efforts and sustainable practices, we can ensure the continued existence of these marvels for future generations. Nature and animals, with their timeless allure, inspire a sense of wonder and reverence, reminding us of the intricate tapestry of life that we are privileged to be a part of. The intricate tapestry of nature and animals unfolds across landscapes, encompassing ecosystems that range from dense rainforests to arid deserts, and from icy tundras to expansive grasslands. In each of these environments, a myriad of life forms coexist, adapting to the challenges presented by their surroundings with remarkable ingenuity. Consider the delicate balance of a coral reef, where a kaleidoscope of marine life thrives in vibrant harmony. From the resplendent hues of coral formations to the iridescent ballet of fish, every element plays